Aries, let me ask you something. What if the pressure you've been feeling wasn't here to break you, but to wake you up? There's a moment coming in 2026 when you'll realize you're done reacting, done waiting, done proving who you are. Something shifts inside you first, quietly, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. This isn't about chasing success anymore. It's about stepping into authority. The kind that doesn't ask for permission. The kind that knows when to move and when to stand still. If you've felt restless lately, like your soul is pushing against old limits, trust that feeling. Stay with me. And before we go any further, tell me in the comments, are you ready to trust yourself when everything begins to change? Because this next chapter is where your power starts speaking. You know, there's a quiet moment that happens before everything changes. Not the kind people post about. Not loud. Not dramatic. It feels more like standing still after years of running. Your breath finally catching up with you. That's where you are now. For a long time, you've been reacting to pressure, to expectations, to fires that weren't even yours to put out. And somewhere along the way, you got used to being strong on the outside while staying on standby inside. But something about 2026 feels different, doesn't it? Not urgent, not chaotic, just clear. It's like the noise around you is fading, and for the first time in a long while, you can hear your own voice again. Not the loud one, the real one. The one that doesn't rush. The one that doesn't prove. The one that simply knows. You're starting to notice it in small ways. How you pause before saying yes. How certain situations no longer pull you in. How your body reacts before your mind tries to explain it away. That's not hesitation. That's awareness. This is the shift most people miss. They think power arrives as action, as force, as a big move. But real power shows up first as stillness, as choice, as the moment you stop asking the world what to do next. You're no longer standing behind your life, Aries. You're standing inside it. And I know, part of you wonders if this calm means you're losing your edge. If slowing down means the fire is going out. It's not. The fire is changing temperature, from wild flame to steady heat. The kind that lasts. The kind that builds instead of burns. You don't need to push anymore. You don't need to rush the next step. What's meant to move will move because you're finally aligned with it. There's a strange relief in realizing you don't have to chase the future. It's already responding to you. And as you sit with that, as you let this new awareness settle in your chest, something else begins to surface. A deeper question. Not about where you're going, but about how you've been carrying yourself all this time. Because when you stop reacting, when you stop living on impulse, you start seeing what no longer belongs. The old roles, the old weight, the versions of you that were built for survival, not truth. And gently, without force, those layers begin to loosen. Not all at once. Just enough for something more honest to breathe through. Stay right here with me, because once that truth starts rising, it doesn't stop at awareness. It begins asking for space. All right, stay with me here, because once that inner truth begins to ask for space, it doesn't stay quiet for long. It starts touching the parts of your life where you've been compromising without noticing, especially the place where you spend most of your waking hours. Your work, your role, your sense of direction. You may not have named it yet, but you've felt it. That subtle tension in your chest when the day begins. That moment when your energy drops. Not because you're tired, but because something inside you knows this container no longer fits. It's not that you lack ambition. You've never lacked drive. What's shifting now is tolerance. You're no longer willing to shrink your fire to make a system feel comfortable. You're no longer interested in roles that only ask you to execute, never to lead. And here's the quiet truth. This isn't rebellion. This is alignment. There's a current moving through you now. Unpredictable, electric. It doesn't shout. It nudges. You start imagining different mornings, different conversations, different ways of showing up. Not louder, more sovereign. You notice how your mind opens when you think about working on your own terms. How your breath deepens when you picture autonomy. How alive you feel when influence replaces obligation. That's not restlessness. That's your leadership instinct waking up. For a long time, you've been the one who carries momentum for others, the one who initiates, the one who moves first. But you've done it inside structures that never truly reflected your authority. Now something changes, not overnight, but decisively. You begin asking different questions. Not what am I allowed to do, but what am I meant to build? Not how do I fit here, but where does my energy expand? And with those questions, old roles begin to loosen their grip. You don't have to force them away. They simply stop making sense. This is where fear sometimes whispers. What if you lose stability? What if you disrupt too much? What if freedom costs more than it gives? But listen closely. What's actually being asked of you is not risk for the sake of chaos. It's courage rooted in clarity. Leadership isn't about control. It's about responsibility for your own direction. You're not here to follow trends. You're here to set tone, to initiate paths that didn't exist until your presence made them possible. And as you begin to honor that, your relationship with work transforms from survival to expression, from obligation to influence. You don't abandon effort. You refine it. You don't lose discipline. You aim it. This is how true authority forms, quietly, from within, before the world ever notices. And as this sense of autonomy settles in, as your identity shifts from participant to initiator, another layer begins to reveal itself. Because stepping into leadership changes more than your career. It changes how you handle power, resources, responsibility. And that is where the next transformation waits. All right, stay close with me for a moment. Because once you begin standing in your own authority, something very real comes into focus. Not the vision, not the purpose, but the weight that comes with it. You start noticing how power moves through your life. Quietly, through choices, through commitments, through the way you handle what has been placed in your hands. Money stops feeling abstract. It stops being just a number on a screen. It becomes energy, responsibility, freedom waiting to be shaped. And I know this part hasn't always felt easy for you. There were times you moved fast, times you trusted instinct more than structure, times you said yes because momentum felt better than pause. Not because you were careless, but because fire doesn't like to wait. Yet, something is different now. You're not interested in quick wins anymore. You're interested in what lasts. There's a new seriousness in the way you think about resources. Not heavy, grounded. You begin asking yourself questions you used to avoid. What am I building toward? What needs my full attention? What drains more than it gives? And instead of pushing those questions away, you sit with them. This is where discipline enters, not as punishment, but as protection. You start feeling the relief that comes from knowing where things stand, from facing what needs to be handled, from choosing clarity over avoidance. It may not feel dramatic from the outside, but inside, something powerful happens. Fear loosens its grip. The anxiety that comes from uncertainty begins to soften when you realize you can actually hold more than you once believed. You are capable of managing weight, of holding responsibility without it consuming you. Money becomes a tool, not a trigger, a way to create space, not pressure. And with that shift, your nervous system settles. You sleep differently. You decide differently. You move through the world with less urgency and more intention. This is not about becoming rigid. It's about becoming reliable to yourself. You learn where to be firm and where to be flexible, when to invest, when to pause, when to say no so your yes actually means something. And slowly, almost without noticing, a sense of safety grows inside you. Not because everything is perfect, but because you trust your ability to respond wisely. That trust changes how you show up everywhere, in work, in relationships, in the way you plan your future. You no longer chase security, you cultivate it. And when that happens, ambition stops feeling frantic. It becomes focused. Your fire doesn't burn out. It steadies. It warms instead of scorches. There is dignity in this phase, a quiet confidence, a knowing that you don't need to rush because you're finally building something solid. And as this foundation takes shape beneath you, as stability replaces survival, your attention begins to drift elsewhere, toward who you are becoming, toward the parts of yourself that are ready to be seen now that you're no longer carrying old weight. And gently, without announcement, another door begins to open. Stay right here with me. Because when stability settles in your body, when you no longer feel like you are surviving from one moment to the next, something deeper begins to surface. It starts as a question you cannot ignore. Quiet, persistent, almost gentle. Am I living as who I truly am, or as who I learned to be? The eclipses do not arrive to punish you. They arrive like a mirror held close, not to judge, but to reveal. You may feel it first in your reactions. Moments where you pause instead of exploding. Situations where you no longer feel the urge to prove your strength. Old patterns rise up, and for the first time, you watch them instead of becoming them. There was a version of you that needed to fight to survive. That version was brave, necessary. It carried you through fire, but it is not who you are becoming. You begin to notice how much energy it took to always be the strong one, the one who charges ahead, the one who absorbs pressure for everyone else. And something inside you softens, not weakens, softens. You realize strength does not require constant resistance. Power does not need noise. Leadership does not demand force. The eclipses gently loosen the armor you have worn for years, not ripping it away, just unfastening the parts you no longer need. The sharp edge of impatience dulls. The reflex to react cools. The habit of carrying what is not yours quietly releases its grip. You are not losing your fire. You are learning how to hold it. There is a difference. Fire that burns without direction consumes everything around it. Fire that is contained becomes light, warmth, guidance. You start to feel this new relationship with yourself, more spacious, more honest. You do not rush to define who you are now. You allow yourself to unfold. Some days that looks like confidence. Other days it looks like rest. Both are valid. This is the rebirth most people never talk about. Not dramatic, not loud, but deeply real. It is the moment when you stop identifying with the roles you played and begin listening to the voice that was always underneath. You do not reject your past. You honor it. Then you place it gently behind you. And with each layer that falls away, your presence changes. People may not know why, but they feel it. You speak less, and when you do, your words land. You act with fewer impulses, yet greater impact. You are no longer driven by reaction. You are guided by intention. This is what it means to become a leader of your own life. Not dominating, not controlling, but anchored. There is peace in this phase, not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. And as this inner alignment deepens, as your identity settles into something truer and lighter, your world begins to respond differently. Connections shift, dynamics change. Certain people draw closer, others quietly fall away, not as a loss, but as a natural recalibration. Because when you stand in your truth, only what resonates can remain. And this gentle sorting, this quiet clarity, is preparing you for something meaningful, for the relationships that will meet you where you are now. Stay with me, because once you stand more firmly in who you are, the world around you begins to rearrange itself. Not loudly, not all at once, but with a quiet precision that feels almost surgical. You may notice it in the way certain conversations suddenly feel thin, how some connections no longer warm you the way they used to. It is not bitterness, it is clarity. For a long time, you were generous with your fire. You gave energy where there was little return. You stayed loyal to people who only knew how to stand behind you, never beside you. You did not do this because you were weak. You did it because your heart is strong, because you believed carrying others was part of being brave. But 2026 has a different lesson for you. It teaches you that strength does not mean absorbing everything. Leadership does not mean doing it alone. And love does not require self-abandonment. You begin to sense when respect is missing, not as anger, as a subtle tightening in your chest. A quiet no forming before your mouth ever speaks. Some people will drift, not with drama, not with confrontation. They simply cannot follow you into this version of yourself. And that is not a failure. It is alignment. You are learning to recognize who meets you eye to eye, who listens when you speak, who does not compete with your light or borrow it without gratitude. These are the connections that stay, not because you hold them, but because they choose to stand. You may feel moments of loneliness as this sorting happens. That is natural. When the room clears, the silence can feel loud, but listen closely. That silence is also space. Space for mutual respect, for conversations that nourish instead of drain, for partnerships where your fire is welcomed, not managed. You begin to move differently in relationships now. You do not rush to explain yourself. You do not overextend to be understood. You allow people to reveal how deeply they can meet you. And you stop rescuing, not because you care less, but because you finally care enough about yourself. This is a powerful shift for you, one that changes the way love flows in your life. Whether romantic, professional, or platonic, you are no longer drawn to intensity alone. You are drawn to integrity. There is a calm confidence in this phase. You can lead without carrying, support without sacrificing, care without collapsing into someone else's needs, and those who remain feel it. They feel safer with you because you are no longer leading from exhaustion. You are leading from presence. This is how real alliances form, not from obligation, but from mutual recognition. You are not closing your heart. You are refining it. And as this refinement settles in, as your circle becomes smaller and stronger, something else begins to unfold quietly inside you. A need to turn inward, not to withdraw, but to restore. Because holding healthier relationships requires a deeper relationship with yourself. And that is where the next layer waits. Stay right here with me. Because after the world around you grows quieter, after the circle becomes smaller and truer, something even more subtle begins to happen. You start turning inward. Not out of exhaustion, out of wisdom. This phase of 2026 does not announce itself. There are no markers, no applause, just a gentle pull towards stillness. You may notice you crave fewer explanations, fewer updates, less noise. Not because you are hiding, but because you are listening. There is a difference. For so long, your strength was visible, obvious, active. You were known for stepping forward, for taking charge, for carrying momentum. But now, your power is doing something else. It is settling, sinking deeper into your body, learning how to stay with you instead of rushing outward. You give yourself permission to rest without guilt, to pause without panic, to breathe without needing a reason. And in that quiet, something heals. Old tension loosens its grip on your shoulders. Your thoughts slow. Your nervous system begins to trust the ground again. You are no longer scanning for the next challenge. You are inhabiting the present moment. This is where real strength is forged, not in confrontation, but in containment, like a blade shaped away from the battlefield, heated, cooled, strengthened in the dark. You are not disappearing. You are becoming unshakable. There is no need to explain this phase to anyone. No need to justify why you are quieter, why you are choosing yourself more often. The people who need constant performance may misunderstand this version of you. Let them. You are learning that not every chapter is meant to be witnessed. Some are meant to be lived privately, slowly, intentionally. You begin tending to your inner world with the same care you once gave to outer goals. Your sleep, your thoughts. The way you speak to yourself when no one is listening, and something remarkable happens. Your confidence becomes calmer. Your decisions feel cleaner. Your energy stops leaking. You no longer need to prove your resilience. You embody it. This quiet healing is not passive. It is deeply strategic. It is preparing you for what comes next. Because the fire inside you is not gone. It is refining its purpose. You are learning when to act, and when not to, when to engage, and when to preserve. This discernment changes everything. You move through life with fewer reactions, fewer emotional spikes, more presence. And in that presence, people feel you differently. They feel your steadiness, your groundedness, your quiet authority. You do not speak as often, but when you do, it lands. This is the kind of strength the world does not see coming, the kind that does not compete, the kind that endures. As this inner restoration continues, as your energy consolidates instead of scattering, you may feel a subtle readiness forming. Not urgency, readiness. A sense that soon, very soon, it will be time to step forward again. Not from impulse, but from alignment. And when that moment arrives, you will not need to announce yourself. Your presence will do it for you. Stay with me a little longer. Because when inner strength has fully settled, when your energy is no longer scattered or leaking, something almost inevitable begins to happen. You don't chase visibility anymore. It finds you, not in a dramatic way, not with noise, but through presence. You may notice it in how rooms respond when you enter. Conversations slow down, eyes lift. People sense something grounded in you before you ever speak. This is not charisma built on performance. This is weight, earned, quiet, undeniable. For a long time, you led with motion, with action, with speed. Now you lead with alignment. Your words carry more meaning because you no longer speak to fill space. You speak when something true needs to be said. And when it lands clean. There is a natural authority forming around you, not claimed, recognized. Opportunities begin to reflect that shift. People seek your perspective, your insight, your steadiness. You are no longer invited just to participate. You are invited to shape direction. And this feels different to you. Not intoxicating, not overwhelming, but right. You are learning that leadership does not require constant visibility. It requires clarity, consistency, integrity. Whether you are building something of your own, guiding a team, communicating ideas, or stepping into a role where others depend on your decisions, your presence does the work before effort ever needs to. You don't need to convince. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to compete. Your influence grows because it is rooted in truth. And there is a sense of relief in this phase, a quiet joy. You realize that being seen does not mean being exposed. Being heard does not mean being loud. Being powerful does not mean being hard. You can lead without losing softness. You can stand firm without closing your heart. You can guide others while still honoring your own pace. People begin to trust you. Not because you promise outcomes, but because your presence feels reliable. This is especially important now. In a world full of urgency and noise, your grounded energy becomes a refuge. And you feel it too. That balance between confidence and humility, between visibility and privacy. You step forward when it matters. You step back when it doesn't. That discernment sharpens your impact. Your ideas find the right audience. Your work resonates more deeply. Your leadership invites collaboration instead of resistance. And the most meaningful part is that you no longer feel the need to prove your worth through output. You trust your timing. You trust your voice. You trust your presence. This is the phase where things align outwardly because they have already aligned inwardly. You are not rising by force. You are rising by coherence. And as this influence continues to unfold, as your visibility stabilizes instead of spikes, another awareness begins to form. A knowing that this is not the destination. It is a threshold, because true leadership does not stop at impact. It asks something deeper. It asks how you will sustain what you are becoming, how you will live with the power you now hold, and how you will choose to carry it forward. That question waits quietly ahead. Stay with me until the end. Because this moment is not about a finish line. It is about recognition. You are not arriving as someone new. You are remembering who you have always been before the noise, before the pressure, before the need to prove yourself to the world. 2026 does not demand that you become louder. It does not ask you to harden your heart or abandon your sensitivity. It asks something far more honest. It asks you to stand in yourself without apology. There is a calm clarity settling into you now. You feel it when you make decisions. Not rushed, not reactive, but grounded. You no longer move from urgency. You move from inner agreement. And that changes everything. You choose with intention. You act with awareness. You know when to push forward and when to wait without fear. This is what sovereignty feels like. Freedom does not come from escape. It comes from structure that supports your truth, from boundaries that protect your energy, from values that guide your actions when no one is watching. You begin to trust yourself deeply, not because you have all the answers, but because you know how to listen. And that trust creates a foundation beneath your life. One that does not shake easily. One that allows you to take risks without losing yourself, to lead without burning out, to love without disappearing. You are no longer fighting the world. You are engaging with it on your own terms. There is dignity in this version of you. A quiet strength that does not seek validation. A confidence that does not need comparison. You have learned how to hold power without letting it consume you, how to move forward without leaving your inner world behind, And this is why nothing stays the same after this year. Not because everything outside of you changes overnight, but because you do. Your relationship with time shifts, with money, with ambition, with love. You stop chasing outcomes and start building a life that feels aligned day by day. Step by step, there will still be challenges. There will still be moments of doubt. But they will no longer define you. You know where you stand now, inside yourself. This is the kind of power that cannot be taken away, because it does not depend on approval, or circumstances, or momentum. It comes from presence, from choice, from self-respect. As you move forward from here, carry this with you. You do not need to rush the next chapter. It will meet you when you are ready. For now, honor the ground beneath your feet. Honor the fire you have learned to guide. Honor the version of you that no longer abandons itself. And if this story resonates, if you feel it settling somewhere deep in your chest, take a moment. Leave a comment, share what this year is awakening in you. Trust yourself. You know the way forward. This is the year you step into power, and from here on, you walk in it. Before you go, let me leave you with this. Power doesn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it arrives as calm, as clarity, as the quiet moment when you finally stop doubting yourself. If this message found you tonight, it wasn't by accident. It's because something inside you is ready to move forward without asking for permission anymore. You don't need to have everything figured out. You only need to trust the part of you that already knows when it's time. So take a breath. Feel where you are right now. And if this year has already started shifting something in you, tell me in the comments. Your story matters here. And if you're walking this path with us, subscribe. Stay close. Because this is not the end of the message. This is only the moment you realize you were never behind. The journey continues. Another message is coming, and Aries, trust yourself.